Hey class, Professor Dunaway here. This is a brief overview of the Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history. Very interesting history. And actually, Gilgamesh existed. And it's been proven by archaeologists and Assyriologists and so forth and so on. And it's gained a lot of fame within, biblical archaeological society is as well, and we'll talk about the reasons as to why in this presentation. So the Epic of Gilgamesh is an ancient Mesopotamian odyssey recorded in the Akkadian language about Gilgamesh, who's the king and was the king of the Mesopotamian city of Uruk. The fullest extent of this Gilgamesh epic, though, is on 12 incomplete Akkadian language tablets. I say incomplete because they're still finding pieces of these tablets from around the world, not just in the Akkadian language, but also in the Sumerian language and languages after that. So this tale was probably orally told. It was probably around before they claimed that it was written. So the Assyriologist Horseman Rassam at Nineveh, the library of the Assyrian king of Ashurnipal, who reigned from 668 to 627 BCE, is who found these tablets, right? The city was basically destroyed. We'll talk about wars in a minute. It's amazing that the story exists today. This makes it even more interesting. So George Smith, the unexpected translator of these tablets, it was written in cuneiform, right? And so he absorbed archaeology, but he didn't have enough money for a proper education. Although he was poor and had a background of, indigence, he was a genius, and he was very diligent in studying this cuneiform. So he got a job with the Department of Oriental Antiquities, and they designated him as the assistant so that he might contribute to the museum's publications of these tales. He was very young, too. So in addition to 5 short poems in Sumerian language are known from the tablets that were written during the first half of the 2nd millennium BCE. We're talking about 2500 BC or 1300 BC. They can't really pinpoint when it was written, but they know that it existed before that. So this is old. This is the oldest epic and possibly the oldest written work. The Mesopotamian people were not literate when they first started building, Uruk in these places. They created a form of writing and became literate. That's important, right? So the poems are entitled as thus: Gilgamesh and Huwawa, Gilgamesh and the Bull of Heaven, of who we will talk about in a minute, Gilgamesh and Agaga of Kish, Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and the Netherworld, and the Death of Gilgamesh. Okay, just to show you where Uruk is, it was up in this area, right? Here it is right here. This is the Middle East. I have a better map in a minute. Iraq, Saudi Arabia. It actually sits, and this is important too, between the Euphrates and the Tigris River. Here's the timeline. Sumerian city-states grow across Mesopotamia. 3500 BC. Clay tablet writing is invented in 3300 BC, 200 years later. 2750 BC, Gilgamesh rules Mesopotamia. Cuneiform is developed. The Hittites invade in 1600, And then the Assyrians begin to conquer Mesopotamia. So this is a period of war. This is why I say it's very interesting and amazing that this piece even exists. So Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, the first half of the story discusses Gilgamesh and Enkidu. And Gilgamesh is a tyrant king who treats his people very poorly, sleeps with wives of everyone who marries. He's just a terrible, terrible person. Enkidu, on the other hand, is a wild man who lives in nature and can talk with animals, right? Enkidu is created in order to stop Gilgamesh from oppressing his people. So Gilgamesh is 2/3 God and 1/3 man. That's interesting. Which side prevails in this story, I wonder. I'm not going to give it away. And his equal to Gilgamesh in strength and bearing is Enkidu. He acts in some ways as an antithesis to the cultured, city-bred warrior king, right? So the opposite, whereas Gilgamesh is very city-oriented, secular, and Enkidu is very nature-oriented, right? So there's an important god, and I'm going to give you a video after this with all the characters listed repetitiously so you can watch it over and over, getting these names down because they sound different than what we're familiar with. This is Shamash. This god plays a huge part in this tale. He's the ancient Mesopotamian sun god, okay? And he was earlier known as Utu in Sumerian. That means sun. And he was believed to see everything that happened in the world every day, and was therefore responsible for justice and protection of travelers. That's important. As a divine judge, he could be associated with the underworld, which we'll see more of in a second here with Enkidu, and additionally, he could serve as the god of divination, telling the future, right? Now we have several big battles that are awesome in this book, and that's why I love this book so much. So Humbaba is a huge, giant, ogre, demon, however you want to call him, and he lives in the cedar forest, and that's where Gilgamesh and Enkidu venture to, and they have this huge battle with him, and it's awesome. Later on in the book, Ishtar, who's the queen of heaven, her previous name with Sumerians was Inanna, and is the ancient goddess of Mesopotamia, right? She's the goddess, get this, she's the goddess of not only love, but war and fertility, right? Love and war. Like, those two never go together, do they? Yeah, right. She's also associated with beauty, sex, divine law, and political power, right? And she was originally worshipped under the Sumerian name as Sumer. She was known by the Akkadian Empire, then the Babylonians, and then the Assyrians as Ishtar. Well, there's a problem. One transcription of the tablets, the earlier tablets, there was not really a reason why Ishtar gets mad and calls the bull of heaven to battle Enkidu and Gilgamesh. A latter transcription of the work is interesting because it actually does give a reason. Because it says that Gilgamesh refuses the sexual advances of the goddess Ishtar, leading to enrage her and demand that the bull of heaven from her father Anu be sent down so that he can attack Gilgamesh in Uruk. And he gives her the bull, and she sends it to attack Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Cool, right? There's a dream instance, right, that Enkidu has. He has two dreams. In the second dream, he actually descends into the underworld. That's cool too, right? In a dream, he sees himself being taken captive to the netherworld by a terrifying angel of death. That's a great part too, right? Here's where it gets real interesting, okay? The Great Flood. there's a reason that we're reading Genesis along with this too. The Great Flood in Genesis. There's a flood in this book as well. It comes from tablet 11, and it's the so-called flood tablet that recounts a story of the Great Flood that happened around 2500 BC. This opened a new field of biblical studies in ancient history, right? Arguments about the authority and the authenticity and the adaptation of this tale still abound. So, if there's a flood, and I want to show you this map, here is where Mesopotamia sits. Uruk is somewhere up in here. Okay, look at the amount of water. Here's modern day Iran. Here's modern day Iraq, Saudi Arabia, right? Turkey. Look at the amount of water around this area. Not only do you have the Euphrates and the Tigris, but you've got the Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Caspian Sea. So if you have a major flood, a tsunami, there's been different people argue different things, possibly a meteorite hit in one of these seas, you'd have a huge water problem, correct? Final portion of the story. So read through that flood's awesome. It's going to blow you away. It's going to shock you. And keep in mind, read Genesis, read the flood versions that was written 2500 BCE, right? Utnapishtim is a king from Shurpak in southern Iraq who survived the flood in a boat. And Utnapishtim is the 8th of the antediluvian. I'm trying to pronounce all these words correct. You got to cut me a slack on this one. Antediluvian kings in Mesopotamian legend, just as Noah is the 8th from Enoch in Genesis. All right, so that should get you started. I'm really looking forward to your feedback, and I hope that you really enjoy this work. I'll be posting a video that just briefly says the names of all the characters within the book Gilgamesh, and then you can watch it like repetitiously. And I'll do one for the Ramayana, and it'll be really short. So I'll just go through the characters with a picture and who they are, and you could watch that over and over again, and that would help you. I appreciate it, everybody. Have a blessed day.